Hi, my name is Mario and I'm a software developer, and today we're going to be doing a short tutorial about how to make a game in Ruby using the Ruby 2D library. The game we're going to make is a simple reaction game, so a square is going to appear on the screen and you're going to have to click on it as soon as you can, and it should be fairly simple to program. You'll only need some really basic knowledge to come in. So how about I run through what the program will look like once we're finished, and then after that we can move on to getting everything installed and then starting our program. So this is what the game looks like, a finished version of the game. So it simply just has this label that says click to begin. Once we click, you can see that it's shown a box here. Now the location of that box is randomly generated. So if I click on the box, you can see it says that I clicked on it within 10,000 milliseconds. So the aim is to get the time as low as you can. So let me try that again. And you can see that now my time is 700 milliseconds. So the whole game is trying to get that time down. And I don't think I'll get much lower than 635 milliseconds. So this is the Ruby 2D library. You can access the website by going to www.ruby2d.com. Once you get there, you'll see a page like this. Now, what we want to do is we want to install the library. So we're going to go to Get Started. And once we go to Get Started, there's some installation instructions here for all three major operating systems. So if you're on a Mac, you can install Homebrew and then follow the instructions here. If you're on Linux, for example, or if you're on Windows, then you'll need to follow these instructions. These instructions will give you everything you need. So they'll install Ruby, they'll install the Ruby 2D library, and once we're done, we should be able to make a simple game. If you have any problems with this at all, you can either leave a question in the comments and let me know if you've gotten stuck. Alternatively, you can seek help from the Ruby 2D community. So if you head to the community link up top here, there is a link to the Gitter chat and also the mailing list. So if you are having any issues with the installation, you can post them on here and hopefully someone should be able to give you a hand. For my machine, I've already got mine set up. I'm using a Mac, so I followed these instructions and I'm ready to go. So let's make our first program. So here in the instructions, you can see here, this is the simplest program we can write. So we're simply loading the Ruby 2D library by saying require Ruby 2D, and then we're running show. So let's see if we can get that one running. And so here is our program. You can see it's just showing a blank window. The first thing we might want to do is just change the color of it. So we might, for example, want a different colored window. Let's do that. Let's call set, so we can say set background, and here I might just say, let's say green. So I've saved the file, let's run the program again. And you can see now our background is green. So the Ruby 2D website has quite a lot of good information to get started. You can have a look through, I'll link the website in the description below as well. What we're going to do is we're going to first generate some text. So when the game starts, the first thing that you want to do is show someone some text telling them to click. So we're going to head over to text. And you can see here, this shows us how to create a new bit of text. I'm going to copy this. And for our show, I'm going to put it here. So the message will say something like click to begin. Okay, I'm going to save that. And now we're going to run it again. And you can see now it says click to begin. So now the first thing we want to do is when the user clicks, we want to, first of all, hide this text. That's the first thing that we're going to do. So if we have a look at the website, it should show us how to add and remove our objects from the screen. So here you can see in this example, they've created a new square and then they've removed it and added it back in. So what we want to do is the text that we've made, we should also be able to call remove on that once the user clicks, and that will remove it from the screen. So we're going to head over to the input link here, which is going to show us how to take input. So you can see here, it's talking about keyboard input. For us, we want to have mouse input. So here they're showing you how to get the coordinates of the mouse, but we're interested in clicking the mouse. So when you click a mouse, there's a few different events that happen. So initial click, there's the mouse down, so that's the user clicking. When the user lets go of the mouse, so they let go of the click, that's a mouse up event. So we can tap into one of these particular events. I think for our purposes, mouse down would be good. So when the user first clicks, so we're going to copy this code. Now, we don't really care which particular button the user has clicked, so we don't really need this code, but we do want this code. And we also want to be able to get the coordinates of where we clicked for later on. So I'm going to copy this. And we're going to put it into our program here before the show command so that it has an effect. So here we don't really care about what button is clicked, so I'm just going to remove that. Okay, so when the user clicks, what we're going to do is we're going to just hide this text. So we're going to have to put this text into a variable. We're going to call it, let's call it message text. And now we're going to, on the mouse down, we're going to remove this text. So we're going to say message.remove. I'm going to leave this line of code in here. So when you click, we'll be able to see the coordinates that we're clicking at on the command line. So you do need to run, do need to exit the program and run it each time for our changes to take effect. So this time when I click, you can see here it's printing the X and Y coordinates. So if I click near the corner here, you can see the numbers are quite low. If I click near the edge, you can see that they're increasing. This window by default is 640 by 480 pixels. So that's why the numbers are close to that. You can see our text has now been removed, which is very good. So the next thing to do is to generate a random block. So let's have a look at the documentation again and see if we can generate a shape. So let's head to shapes on the menu. We've got a triangle as well as a square. So we want to create a square. I'm going to copy this code here. Now the Z attribute here that they're setting, that's to do with the depth of the object. So you can have different layers of objects. For us, we don't really need that. So I'm just going to remove the Z once I copy it into my editor. So the square we're going to create once the user clicks. So we're going to put it in here and line that up. And let's get rid of the Z and the trailing comma. So color, let's make, if we've made ours green, let's make it purple an option. Let's try that and run our program again. Okay, so once we click, we've got this square and it's purple, which is really good. So that's good enough for the moment. So now that the square is being generated, the next thing we want to do is we want to be able to detect when the user is clicking on that square. Now, the good thing is we've already got the coordinates of when the user clicks. And so we're gonna be able to detect when the user is clicking on our square here. So let's close that down. Before we do that though, what we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to create a toggle. So when the square is showing, we want the user clicks to do something slightly different from when the square is not showing. So when we're first starting the game and then the user's actually trying to click on the square. So we're gonna have to create a variable just to hold that different state. So basically if the game has started or if it hasn't started. So the logic that we've got here right now, that will run once the game has, before the game started, and then we want different logic once the game has started. So let's do that first. So I'm going to create a variable here. We're going to call it game started, and it's going to start out as false. So this code here, so removing the message and generating the new square, that should only happen when the game has not yet started. So let's put a condition around this code just to say only do this if the game has not started. So if The game is not started. Let's run this code here. Okay. Now that shouldn't actually change my game, but we just want to make sure we haven't broken anything. And you can see it's still working now. So that's very good. Okay. So if the game has started, then we're going to look for if we're hitting the box. So I'm just going to remove this opposite, and we're just going to put this inside of an else. So I'm just going to say this. So that's the same now. I've just made it have an else here. So if the game has started, we're going to want to see if our coordinates, the event X and the event Y, are inside of this square. Thankfully, there's a really easy way to do this. So if we have a look at the documentation, I think it's in the 2D basic section, talks a bit about the coordinates here. Down the bottom though, it has this contain section. So here they're creating a square, they're setting some coordinates. So the X is 50, the Y is 50, the size 100. And then they've got this method called contain. So that method will return whether or not these coordinates, so this is the X and that's the Y, if these coordinates are inside of this square, this square object here. So you can see here, if we ask, is 75 and 75 within the square, it says it is. And if we ask for 10 and 20, it says it's not. So we're going to use contains, and then we're going to pass in the mouse coordinates. So let's do that. So here we've already got the event X and event Y. We want to check this square though. So what we're going to need to do is put this into a variable. So I'm going to say square is nil just to start off, just so we've got access to that variable. And then we're going to assign it here. So now I can use this variable, and we're going to see, does the square contains event.x and event.y. So this line here will return either true and false. So let's put a condition around it. So we'll say if square contains, and let's for the moment just print out clicked it. Okay. So again, we've got two different kind of stages of the game. Before the game starts, this code here is going to run if you click, and then once the game has already started, it's going to run this. Now we need to toggle this so it doesn't continuously run the same. So if the game hasn't started, we're going to set that here. So we're going to say game started equals true, and then the next time it will run this code. Okay, so let's run it again. Okay, click to begin. You can see now if we click on the box, it's saying clicked it. If I click somewhere else, it's not saying that it's clicked it. So it's only when I click on this box that it's saying clicked it. So that's really good. That's awesome. So now we can do some sort of behavior based on whether or not the user has clicked it. Okay. So what I want to do is once the user's clicked it, we want to record how long, how much time it took. So from when the square was displayed to when the user has clicked it. So what we're going to do is the first thing we're going to record the initial time when the user, when the square was displayed. So let's just say start time. So we're just going to create a variable out here which we can use, and we'll set it here when we set the game started. So we'll say start time is the current time. So in Ruby that's time.now. Let's save that. And now when we click on the square, we will record how long the duration was there. So we'll create another variable for duration, and now we'll use that, we'll set that. So that'll be the current time, so time.now, and then take away the start time. Okay. And now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to set a new message. So the initial message we had was click to begin. Our new message here that we're going to display is going to show, excuse me, our new message we're going to set is going to show the duration that it took rather than just saying click to begin. So we'll take this and we'll just add the duration here. So we'll say we will say you took, and then we're going to add the duration here. Yep, you took that long, and then click to begin. So let's try that out. So the changes we made, we're recording the start time now, and then once you click on it, on the box, we're going to use that start time and figure out our duration, and then we're going to display that duration in our message here. So let's give that a go. Okay, so let's click to begin, click on our box, and now you can see the duration is shown here. So it's showing me the duration in seconds. So if we click on it very quickly, and it's also not removing our message, so we'll need to fix that in a second. One thing we want to change is rather than showing us in seconds, if we show it in milliseconds, it might be better because it's going to be usually less than a second that the person will click on it. So let's fix that. Now, the reason why we had those messages over each other, over the top, is when we have started the game, if we click on the square, we're never setting the game state, the game started to be stopped. So this will just run each time. So once we get to this point, we want to say game started is false. So whoops. That way we're resetting the game, and this won't continuously run each time we click. So that'll then start this again. So that should hopefully fix the messages being shown over the top of each other. Let's try that out. Okay, and you can see that it's not showing the message. Now, when we click on it, we probably want to hide this box. We don't really need this box to be shown anywhere, so we're going to do that here as well. So this square here, we're just going to say remove. So once you click on the square, it'll hide it and it will show the text above it. Okay, brilliant. So it's showing us the text now. When we try it again, it shows us the new time. We need to now change this so it says milliseconds. So milliseconds, there's 1,000 milliseconds in 1 second. So we'll simply times this number by 1,000. So the duration now is going to be these two numbers times by 1,000. Okay, so that's better. We probably don't want the decimal here, so we can lop that off, so we can round the number, and then we probably just want to write milliseconds after it, just so it's obvious what it is. So we're going to round this whole thing by calling round, and then we will add milliseconds here. Milliseconds. Maybe let's say well done. Okay, so let's save that and try it again. Awesome, so it's working. Let's see how quick, 117 milliseconds. So the last thing, as you've probably noticed, is that the square, it's rather big first of all, and then it also doesn't change location. So it's always in the same spot. What we want to do is we want to have it so that the square appears in different locations. So let's do that. So the first thing, let's make it smaller. Then after that, let's make it so that it randomly appears all over the place. So the first thing is this size, 125. I think about 25 is probably going to be okay. Let's try that and see how we go. So that's much better. I think that's a much better target size. And now we just need to make it go in a random spot. So in Ruby, there is a rand method. And what that will do is that will generate a number between 0 and 1. If we provide an argument into it, so let's say rand 200, let's say, that will then generate a number between 0 and 199. So there's 200 different options here. So we can replace our fixed coordinates here with some random numbers. And that should make it so that it appears in a different spot each time. The one thing we have to change though is if you look at where it's appearing, it's only really appearing in this first kind of quarter, and that's because I've used 200 here and 200. the dimensions of the window at 640 by 480, and we could hard code them here, so just pop in 640 and 480, but we can actually ask Ruby2D how big the window is. And the reason why you might want to do that is if we change the width of our window, the size of our window, then we would also have to change it here. So if we just ask Ruby2D, give me your, the dimensions of the window, and then we can pop them in here. So the way we do that, let's look at the documentation to figure that out again. So the way we do that is we have these two different methods. So set, where we can set different attributes. These are all the attributes here we can set, and then we also have get. So one of the things we can get is we can get the width, and then we can also get the height. So let's use get width and get height. So here get width, and then here get height. Okay. Now, the way the rendering works, if this generated the biggest number it could, 640, what it would actually do is it would render the start of the box here, and then the rest of it would be kind of out of the window. So we don't ever want to start at the end, we want to start a little bit inwards. So we probably want to take away the actual size from the box. So rather than just using the width, we want to take the size here from here as well. Okay. And lastly, I might just remove this here that was just printing out the coordinates of the mouse. So let's try that and see how we go. Okay, so I've got a syntax error here, so there's something wrong in my code. You can see here it's telling me that line 26 of my code has an error, and the reason why that's happened, I think here is we're missing some parentheses. Okay, we need to take 25 here. Hopefully that fixes it up. Beautiful. So now when I click, you can see it's all working fine, 1036 milliseconds. Awesome, so that's working. So a few little things we might tidy up. First thing is maybe just put a title in here. So let's do that. The way we do that is we just call set title and we give it the name. So here as a string, so we're going to say our reaction game. Let's put that just next to our background. And the other thing we might want to do is just change the text size, just make it a little bit bigger and maybe pull it further into the window just so it's not touching the edge. So let's say our X will be, let's say 20, and our Y will be 20. Here, when we generate this text, we're going to do the same thing. Let's see how it changes now. So that's a little bit nicer. Beautiful, well done. And that's, I think, about it for today. So that's probably as simple as they come. You can see here, we've only used, what is that, 34 lines of code once I remove that new line out there. So really short game. We haven't done any object-oriented programming. Really, this is a very kind of procedural kind of program. The only thing here is that this is running obviously when you click your mouse, but next time, in the next session, I think we might look at creating a little bit more of a complicated game where we're going to start doing some object-oriented programming and probably end up with a longer program here. But you can see there's not a lot of code here. The game works, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions about this particular game, or if you need any help at all, feel free again to add a comment below. If you're stuck as well, you can also head over to the community tab on the Ruby2D website, and there's plenty of people to help you either on the chat or on the mailing list. So yeah, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. It was a lot of fun. I hope to make a few more of these in the near future. And if you have any suggestions for any other little games that you'd like to create, also let me know and we can have a go at those. Thank you very much. Again, I'm Mario, and I'll see you next time.